In the vast emptiness of space, the UES Horizon glided silently, a sleek vessel that seemed almost unremarkable at first glance. Captain J. Park stood on the bridge, his posture straight, eyes focused on the massive holographic display that mapped the approaching Galactic Council chambers. The ship's exterior appeared deceptively simple: gray metal panels that looked slightly worn, weapon ports that seemed outdated. But those who knew understood that appearances could be the most effective camouflage. Hai Kim, the lead engineer, watched the systems with a calm precision that masked years of hidden technological development. As they approached the massive, crystalline structure of the Galactic Council, alien delegates from countless star systems gathered. Tentacled beings, energy-based life forms, and silicon-based creatures filled the enormous circular chamber. Their conversations hummed with a mixture of anticipation and barely concealed contempt for the human delegation. The Corvin delegation, a reptilian species known for their technological arrogance, clustered near the central platform. Their scaled bodies shifted with barely contained laughter, their multiple eyes fixed on the approaching human vessel. Commander Rillo, a particularly pompous Corvin diplomat, turned to his subordinates with a dismissive gesture. "One human ship?" he hissed, his translator converting his alien sounds into clear speech. "They dare to enter the Galactic Council with such a primitive vessel?" Inside the Horizon, the crew remained calm. Sung Choi, the tactical officer, monitored the external communications, his fingers dancing lightly over holographic interfaces. He knew something the aliens did not, something that would change everything. The chamber fell silent as the Horizon docked. Captain Park walked forward, dressed in a simple dark uniform that seemed almost mundane compared to the elaborate costumes of other alien delegates. His steps were measured, confident, betraying no hint of the technology that hummed beneath the ship's unremarkable exterior. Alien representatives leaned forward, some with tentacles of curiosity, others with crystalline appendages that shifted with skepticism. The human delegation consisted of just 3 individuals: Park, Kim, and Choi, a stark contrast to the massive delegations of other advanced civilizations. "Humans," Commander Rillo announced, his voice dripping with condescension. "You have been granted a rare opportunity to address the Galactic Council. We are most curious about your capabilities." Park stepped forward, his voice calm and clear. "We come with a simple message," he said, "about technological potential." Whispers erupted across the chamber. Some alien delegates laughed, others looked confused. The Corvins exchanged knowing glances, believing they were about to witness another demonstration of human weakness. Hai Kim stood slightly behind Park, her hand resting near a small device that looked like nothing more than a standard communication module. But those who knew her understood that appearances could be spectacularly misleading. The chamber was a mix of colors and shapes: energy beings that pulsed with light, silicon-based life forms that looked like living crystals, reptilian creatures, with multiple eyes, and gaseous entities that shifted and swirled. And in the center of it all, 3 humans who seemed almost disappointingly ordinary. Commander Rillo continued his mocking speech. "The Galactic Council has observed human technological development. We find it amusing. Your species shows promise, but you are generations away from true interstellar capability." Park simply smiled, a quiet, knowing smile that made some of the more perceptive aliens suddenly feel uncomfortable. The chamber was vast, easily capable of holding thousands of delegates from hundreds of star systems. Holographic displays flickered with real-time translations, diplomatic protocols, and intricate political networks. Yet in this moment, everything seemed to focus on the small human delegation. Sung Choi watched the external sensors, his fingers hovering near systems that nobody in the chamber could even comprehend. Years of secret research, decades of technological innovation, all compressed into what looked like a simple ship. "We appreciate the Council's perspective," Park said smoothly, his words translated perfectly into multiple alien languages. "Perspective is always interesting." Something in his tone made the laughter die down. Something in his eyes suggested that the humans knew exactly what they were doing. The stage was set. The players were in position, and nobody, absolutely nobody, understood what was about to happen. As the initial diplomatic exchanges continued, a subtle energy began to build. The Horizon sat silently docked, looking for all the world like a simple, almost outdated vessel. But beneath that unremarkable exterior, something extraordinary was waiting. Deep within the research facilities of Earth's most secret technological complex, a small team of engineers worked tirelessly. The facility, buried beneath layers of rock and advanced shielding, hummed with an energy that spoke of something extraordinary brewing. Hai Kim stood before a holographic display, her fingers tracing complex equations that seemed to dance and shift. Around her, prototype systems flickered, each one a potential breakthrough that could change everything humanity understood about space technology. The project had begun quietly, almost accidentally. Years ago, a team of young researchers had discovered an unusual quantum interaction during a routine materials experiment. What started as a small observation had grown into something far more significant. Sung Choi walked into the lab, a data tablet in his hand. His eyes were tired but focused, carrying the weight of years of secret development. The weapon system they were creating was unlike anything in human or alien history, a concept so radical that most scientific communities would have laughed it off as impossible. "The latest calculations are promising," he said to Hai, pointing at a series of complex diagrams. The holographic display showed what looked like a simple energy pulse, but the underlying mathematics told a different story. Their work was built on a fundamental reimagining of energy transfer. Where other civilizations saw energy as something to be accumulated or directed, this team saw it as something that could be completely transformed. The weapon they were developing wasn't about destruction, it was about fundamental molecular restructuring. Outside the facility, the world continued its normal routine. Millions of people went about their daily lives, completely unaware of the technological miracle being developed underground. Governments knew little. Only a select few understood the true potential of the project. The prototype looked deceptively simple. A small device, no larger than a standard communication module, sat in a heavily shielded testing chamber. Its exterior was unremarkable. Gray metal, minimal design, nothing that would suggest its true capabilities. Hai remembered the early days of the project, how they had started with impossible questions. What if energy could be manipulated at its most fundamental level? What if a weapon could deconstruct matter without traditional explosive force? Years of failures had preceded this moment. Countless prototypes that had done nothing more than create spectacular and expensive explosions. But each failure brought them closer to understanding. Sung began running a new series of simulations. Holographic models showed potential scenarios: fleet interactions, energy transfer, molecular disruption. Each simulation ran thousands of times, testing every possible variable. The technology they were developing went beyond traditional weapon systems. It was a complete reimagining of energy manipulation. Where other civilizations saw weapons as tools of destruction, this team saw them as precise instruments of molecular transformation. "We're close," Hai whispered, more to herself than to Sung. Her fingers continued to dance across the holographic interface, adjusting microscopic variables that would mean nothing to an outside observer. The facility was a maze of security, multiple layers of protection, physical, digital, quantum-level encryption, ensured that no unauthorized person could ever understand what was happening here. Teams worked in isolated groups, with nobody having complete knowledge of the entire project. Sung pulled up a comparison chart. On one side, traditional weapon technologies from various alien civilizations. On the other, their prototype. The difference was stark, almost unbelievable. "It's not just a weapon," he said quietly. "It's a complete redefinition of energy interaction." Outside, the world continued to spin. Political tensions rose and fell. Alien civilizations continued their complex diplomatic dance. And here, in this underground facility, a small team of humans were about to change everything. The prototype pulsed softly, a quiet heartbeat of potential energy. It looked simple, unremarkable. Nothing that would suggest it could rewrite the understanding of technological capability. But looks, as the team well knew, could be spectacularly deceiving. Space stretched out like a dark canvas, infinite and cold. The UES horizon moved with calculated precision, its engines humming at a frequency that seemed almost too quiet to be real. Captain J. Park stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back, watching the tactical displays. The Corvin fleet approached, massive ships that looked like metallic predators. Their weapon systems glowed with threatening energy, multiple cannons rotating and tracking the human vessel. Commander Rillo's communication channel buzzed with aggressive intent. "Human vessel," the alien voice crackled. "You are entering restricted space. Prepare for inspection and potential termination." Sung Choi's fingers hovered over the control systems. Years of preparation had led to this moment. Every system on the horizon was perfectly calibrated, every potential scenario mapped and remapped countless times. Hai Kim watched the external sensors. The Corvin ships were positioning themselves in a classic attack formation, a strategy that had worked against hundreds of civilizations. But they didn't know what was waiting. The first warning shots came quickly, massive energy pulses that would have vaporized most ships instantly. But the horizon simply absorbed the energy, its hull seeming to shimmer slightly with each impact. "Shields holding," Sung reported calmly. His voice didn't betray a hint of concern. Commander Rillo's communication became more aggressive. "Surrender, or be destroyed," the alien voice demanded. The Corvin fleet continued its approach, clearly expecting an easy victory. Park remained completely still. His eyes tracked the incoming weapons, noting their precise trajectories. To the alien fleet, this looked like a standard confrontation. They saw a seemingly defenseless human ship about to be obliterated. The tactical display showed multiple targeting systems locking onto the horizon. Weapon ports on the Corvin ships glowed with intense energy. They were preparing for total destruction. "Tactical, team," Park said quietly. "Prepare initial response protocol." Hai's hand moved almost imperceptibly. A small switch flickered, something that looked like a simple diagnostic tool. But those who knew understood it was far more. The Corvin fleet continued its approach. More warning shots fired. Each blast that should have torn the horizon apart simply dissipated across its surface. The human ship didn't even shake. Sung's fingers danced across the control systems. Complex algorithms calculated potential responses, energy distributions, molecular interaction potentials. To an outside observer, it would have looked like routine system monitoring. "They don't understand," Hai whispered. Her voice carried a mix of scientific fascination and quiet anticipation. The communication channels filled with alien sounds, a mixture of confusion and growing anger. The Corvin fleet had never encountered a ship that simply absorbed their most powerful attacks without showing any damage. Park watched the tactical display. Each Corvin ship was now fully committed to the attack. Their formations were perfect, a textbook military approach that had worked against countless civilizations, but they were about to learn a painful lesson about humanity. Sung's hand moved closer to a single red interface. It looked almost unremarkable, something that could have been a simple system reset button. But those who knew understood its true potential. The space around the horizon began to shift, subtle changes that most sensors would miss. Energy distributions that didn't follow any known physical laws. The Corvin fleet continued its attack completely unaware. "Targeting systems locked," Sung reported. His voice was calm, almost clinical. Commander Rillo's voice continued to demand surrender. The alien believed he was in complete control of the situation. Another civilization about to be taught a lesson about challenging superior technological might. But humanity had a different lesson prepared. Park took a deep breath. Everything they had worked for, everything they had prepared was about to be demonstrated. "Prepare," he said quietly, "for first contact resolution." The bridge of the horizon remained perfectly calm. Outside, the Corvin fleet continued its aggressive approach. Weapons charged, formations locked, ready to destroy what they saw as a weak human vessel. They had no idea what was coming. The moment stretched like an invisible thread, tension building in the silent space between the horizon and the Corvin fleet. Captain J. Park's hand moved almost imperceptibly, a subtle signal that would change everything. Sung Choi's finger touched the activation interface. It looked like nothing more than a simple red button, something that might control a basic system. Diagnostic. But this button contained years of secret research, countless failed experiments, and a technological breakthrough that would rewrite understanding of energy manipulation. The first sign was almost nothing, a microscopic shimmer in the space around the horizon. Most sensors wouldn't even register it. The Corvin fleet continued their attack, massive energy weapons charging, completely unaware of what was about to happen. Hye Kim watched the quantum interface, her breathing steady. Years of calculations, months of preparation, all compressed into a single moment of potential. Then it happened. A pulse, not an explosion. Not a traditional weapon discharge. Something entirely different. The first Corvin ship simply dissolved, not destroyed. Not blown apart, literally deconstructed at a molecular level. One moment it existed, the next, nothing. No debris, no energy signature, just empty space. Commander Rillo's communication channel went silent mid-threat. The second ship followed, then the third. Each vessel disappeared faster than light could record the event. No dramatic explosions, no spectacular destruction, just complete absolute removal. Sung's fingers moved with surgical precision. The weapon system, if it could even be called that, worked unlike anything in known galactic technology. It wasn't about destroying matter. It was about completely restructuring molecular bonds. Target neutralization complete, he reported, his voice calm and clinical. Where an entire advanced alien fleet had existed moments before, only cosmic dust remained. The space looked exactly the same. No scorch marks, no debris, no evidence of the massive technological engagement that had just occurred. Park watched the tactical displays. The holographic screen showed nothing where hundreds of massive warships had been just seconds ago. To any external observer, it would look like the ships had never existed. Mai began running initial analysis protocols. Quantum recorders captured data that would take years to fully understand. What had just happened defied current scientific understanding of energy, matter, and molecular interaction. The horizon systems hummed quietly, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Its exterior remained unchanged, still looking like a simple, almost outdated human vessel. Galactic communication channels began to light up. Confusion, panic, disbelief. Reports started flooding in from various monitoring stations. An entire Corvin fleet had simply vanished. Prepare diplomatic communication protocols, Park instructed. Sung began compiling the initial report. Technical language that would sound almost mundane, carefully describing an event that was anything but ordinary. Years of research compressed into a few precise paragraphs. The weapon, if it could be called that, represented a complete reimagining of energy interaction. It didn't destroy. It didn't explode. It simply converted matter into its most basic components, then redistributed those components with perfect precision. Hye's hands moved across the quantum interface. Complex equations began to form, attempting to describe the indescribable. What had just happened went beyond traditional weapon technology. It was a fundamental shift in understanding how matter could be manipulated. Commander Rillo's last communication continued to play in the background, a final threat that now seemed pathetically ironic. The Corvin fleet that had come to demonstrate their technological superiority had been erased in less time than it took to breathe. The horizon continued its journey, looking for all the world like nothing had happened. No celebration, no dramatic victory speeches. Just calm, calculated precision. Space remained unchanged, silent, infinite. But everything had just changed. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent. Holographic displays flickered with incomplete data, showing nothing where an entire advanced fleet had once existed. Alien delegates stared in shock, their various appendages frozen in disbelief. Captain J. Park stood calm, almost uninterested. Behind him, Hae Kim and Sung Choi remained perfectly composed, as if they had just completed a routine maintenance task. Reports began flooding communication channels. Monitoring stations across multiple star systems confirmed the impossible. An entire Corvin fleet had vanished without a trace. No debris, no energy signature, nothing. The human delegation had changed everything in a single moment. Diplomatic channels erupted into chaos. Emergency meetings were called. Species that had mocked humanity for decades now sat in terrified silence. The technological demonstration was beyond anything anyone had ever witnessed. "We request a formal explanation," demanded a crystalline delegate from the Centauri system, her voice trembling slightly. Park stepped forward. "The incident represents a technological capability demonstration," he said simply. "No drama, no threat. Just a matter-of-fact statement that sent chills through the entire chamber." Hai began transmitting carefully prepared technical documents. Each page was filled with complex equations that looked like mathematical poetry. Most alien scientists would spend years trying to understand the basic principles. The weapon, if it could be called that, wasn't just a technological breakthrough. It was a complete reimagining of energy and matter interaction. Humanity had just shown they could erase entire fleets with less effort than most species would use to swat an insect. Sung monitored external communication networks. Panic was spreading. Civilizations that had spent millennia building complex military technologies now realized they were completely obsolete. The horizon remained in dock, looking almost disappointingly ordinary. Its gray exterior betrayed nothing of the revolutionary technology contained within. To an outside observer, it might have been just another simple human vessel. Diplomatic protocols collapsed. Traditional power structures that had existed for thousands of years suddenly looked fragile. Humanity had just demonstrated that technological potential meant more than historical reputation. "Humanity requests nothing," Park continued. "This was merely a demonstration of potential technological capabilities." The statement was simple, direct, terrifying in its simplicity. Alien delegates began whispering. Some looked scared. Others looked curious. A few looked like they were reconsidering everything they thought they knew about human potential. Hai's technical documents continued to stream. Each page represented years of secret research. Quantum interactions that most species couldn't even conceptualize. Molecular restructuring techniques that rewrote fundamental understanding of physics. Communication networks across multiple star systems began analyzing the data. Scientists worked frantically, trying to understand what had happened. But the more they studied, the less they understood. Sung watched the external sensors. The horizon systems remained calm, almost boring in their precision. No celebration, no dramatic speeches, just pure, calculated demonstration of technological superiority. The Galactic Council found itself in uncharted territory. A species they had considered primitive had just demonstrated technology beyond anything they could comprehend. Hours passed, then days. The shock began to settle into something more profound. Humanity had changed the conversation about technological potential forever. No demands were made, no territories claimed. Just a simple demonstration that suggested humanity could do whatever it wanted, whenever it wanted. Park looked around the chamber. Alien delegates avoided direct eye contact. The balance of power had shifted in a moment so quick, most hadn't even realized it was happening. "Any questions?" he asked quietly. Nobody spoke. The message was clear. Humanity had arrived. And the galaxy would never be the same again. In the vast emptiness of space, the horizon sat silently, a weapon of such profound technological complexity that it redefined understanding itself.